Has boring old suburbia got you down? Do you sometimes feel like you just need to get away? Then it's time you paid a visit to the new New York City. Due to the recent apocalypse, the Big Apple is better than ever. Yes, it's still cold as but now you can take a stroll through beautiful downtown without all those inconveniences of old. Traffic is nearly a thing of the past. No longer do you have to worry about crazy taxis, pedestrians, bike messengers, or people handing out flyers. In fact, you can walk into your favorite coffee shop with no lines. And you won't even have to be annoyed by hipsters trying to get you to read their screenplays. The new New York City's crime rate is also way down. Muggings, robberies, nearly non-existent. Because if it does happen, you can just shoot the fuckers without any repercussions. Homicide numbers are pretty much the same though. And if you enjoy your stay, buying an apartment in the city has never been easier. I just got myself a great 1-bedroom, 1-bath for super cheap. Ignore the dead body. So visit the new New York City. Oddly enough, the apocalypse made us better. I'm just kidding. I'm sure New York City is a fine place to live. Please don't kill me. So, after years of waiting, we're finally getting our hands on The Division, a quasi-kind of MMO third-person shooter from Ubisoft. If you're confused, think Destiny meets Defiance, with some Ghost Recon Phantoms thrown in there because I feel like it. What? I'll throw in whatever I want. The game takes place in a newly demolished New York City, I guess. Kind of hard to tell. It seems a virus hit and caused a massive epidemic. So now people are running amok, causing all sorts of trouble. Looting, killing, standing around begging for stuff. Are we sure the epidemic hit New York City? I don't really see a difference. You are part of The Division, a group of elite agents sent in to fix this and that's where this beta begins. Now this test was very limited, stopping players from exploring past a certain point, limiting the amount of upgrades, completely blocking off certain customizations, no crafting, and you only got to play one story mission. But I think the beta did a really good job of giving you a taste of what's to come. First, let's talk graphics. I'm not gonna mince words, the game is gorgeous. Ironically, The Division's version of New York City feels alive, even though it's mostly dead. There's some great weather effects in the game that are really neat to experience. Like snow! Oh, that's pretty. Shut up, I'm from Texas, I never see snow. The obvious devastation, the distant sound effects of war, and the wandering NPCs really sell the atmosphere of desperation. Then there's the UI. This is honestly how UI should be done. It's minimalistic while simultaneously being extremely informative. I feel it's actually one of the best things about this game, and that's saying a lot. I mean, I just said that the UI is one of the standout features of what is already a pretty solid game. However, the game is not without its graphical glitches. Dude, you appear to be missing something. Second, let's talk controls. Overall, the game controls pretty standard for the genre. The controls are tight, aiming feels good, blah 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 blah. I played on both a keyboard and mouse and a controller. Both performed perfectly fine. But I do feel that the game was designed a bit more with a controller in mind. Now, The Division is a third-person cover-based shooter. That means no jumping. I find this to be both a blessing and a curse. On the upside, I hate seeing people jump around like idiots all the time. On the downside, I like being one of those idiots. But I do like the cover-based shooting aspect because I feel it's a tiny bit more realistic and fits the game's setting. So you can take cover, vault over waist-high objects, shoot your gun, shoot your secondary gun, shoot your sidearm, throw grenades, slam a med pack, and use 2 special skills, but we'll get to those in a second. Now for gameplay. To make this easier, let's break it up into 2 parts, PvE and PvP, which the game kinda does anyway. The first part you'll experience is PvE. As you walk the streets of New York City, you'll find quite a few bad guys doing their bad guy thing. Of course, you'll want to mow them down because you're a good guy, right? Right? Remember that later. Killing enemies gives you experience and occasionally some loot. But you won't always just be randomly killing bad guys. Missions will actually pop up all over the map, such as saving hostages, stopping an enemy attack, and other things that involve shooting your gun. There are also these cool Batman-esque investigation missions called Echoes, where you'll follow clues to reach an objective. Then you'll probably shoot some stuff. But there's at least a few minutes there where you're not using your gun. And lastly, there's dungeons. Or whatever the Division's calling them. Yeah, they're dungeons. Players only got to experience one of these during the beta, but I decided to do it twice. Once on regular difficulty by myself because I don't have any friends. And once on hard difficulty with some of my friends. Or at least I'm gonna pretend they're my friends. In this mission, we made our way through a basketball stadium attempting to save a doctor that our base desperately needs. Naturally, as with any dungeon, you will come across bosses who have quite a bit more health and hit much harder than normal enemies. Once you complete this, or any mission for that matter, you'll also get some supplies, which you will use to upgrade your base of operations. Yes, there's some base building in The Division. Eat your heart out, Fallout 4. Of course, with experience comes levels and character customization. As you level up, you can unlock special skills, of which you can use 2 at a time. I chose a healing skill and a radar skill, which helped me see enemies through walls. There was also a shield and rocket launcher skill that I saw some other people using. This is where the game is kind of like an MMO. In this group of 3, we had a tank, DPS, and healer. That's kinda cool to see in a shooter. Now, each skill can also be modded given you've unlocked them by building up your base. These mods can add alternate effects or simply increase the effectiveness of your skills. There's also gear. You have armor, weapons, mods for your weapons, and clothing that'll change your appearance. Let's see here, we've got coats, more coats. Okay, so that's the PvE side. Let's move over to the PvP side, where the real rewards are. Or at least so says the game. To get the best gear in The Division, you'll need to enter the Dark Zone, an open PvP area full of strong enemies. I use the term full very loosely. Killing NPCs in the Dark Zone awards you with Dark Zone currency and Dark Zone experience. These are used to purchase Dark Zone gear. Dark Zone! NPCs out here also typically drop better loot than you would get in PvE zones. However, the Dark Zone is under quarantine, meaning you can't just simply take your gear out. Nope, instead you'll have to evac your gear out. That means going to an evac zone and calling in a helicopter, and then waiting for it to come, which takes 90 seconds. And this is the most agonizing 90 seconds ever, because once you signal for a helicopter, everyone in the zone knows it. And as I mentioned, the DZ, as I'm going to call it, is full PvP. Anyone can kill anyone. And if you die, you'll drop anything you've gathered while in the DZ, as well as some DZ currency. Now, if you're thinking, The Division is gonna be a gank fest, you should know that attacking innocent people has a downside. For one, it makes you a rogue for a certain amount of time. As a rogue, any non-rogue players can kill you for a nice reward, and of course, all of your DZ loot. Dying while you're a rogue also has some pretty harsh penalties, like losing even more DZ currency and even losing DZ experience. But going rogue does have its benefits too. Should you survive being a rogue until your timer runs out, thus resetting your rogue status, you'll gain rewards equal to how many people you've killed. And that isn't even mentioning the money, the loot, the infamy. Which brings us to a segment I like to call Being a D**k with the HiveLeader.
Warning. Anticipate. Warning. Your division affiliation has been disavowed. You are now marked as rogue.
So needless to say, I really enjoyed my time with The Division, and it made me really excited for the game to launch. But that's not to say there isn't concerns. Much like everyone else, I'm worried about the longevity of the game. How much content will there really be? Granted, that's hard to judge from this limited beta, but it's still a concern. Now, Ubisoft has announced some DLC and some raids and such, which I'm of mixed opinion about, but if The Division is expecting the Dark Zone to act as its main endgame, I worry about that being very off-putting to a lot of people. Open PvP with full loot is kind of a niche, and not something that's going to appeal to the masses. Not that that's a bad thing, but still. But then again, what do I know? I'm just a cartoon. And that was The Division. I am really sorry, New York. A special shout out to Gibson for making these HiveLeader characters. There's a link in the description below to some of his other work. I strongly suggest you go check it out. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button for future videos. You can also watch another video I've done right up here. You can also follow me on Twitter if you want for some random thoughts. And if you really want to help out the channel, you can buy some merchandise. Or you can donate to me on Patreon like these other agents of The Division. I will betray you all.